Shedeur Sanders addresses speeding tickets. Definitely learned not to drive fast at all. Shedeur Sanders no longer has a need for speed. It's been quite the offseason and introduction to the NFL for the rookie quarterback. He experienced one of the more shocking draft falls in recent memory, dropping all the way to the 5th round after being considered a first-round prospect by analysts. Since being picked by the Cleveland Browns, Sanders has done just about everything right, until he picked up a pair of speeding tickets in June. The rookie addressed those incidents at training camp on Friday, saying he learned his lesson. "Yeah, I definitely learned not to drive fast at all," Sanders said, via the Akron Beacon-Journal, part of the USA Today network. "So I really don't even drive that much anymore. But I really don't drive fast at all. So I definitely follow the rules, and I hope everybody learned from my situation. You know that not drive fast at all." The first citation came on June 5th in Brunswick, Ohio, when Sanders was ticketed for driving 91 miles per hour in a 65 miles per hour speed limit zone. The second was for driving 101 miles per hour in a 60 miles per hour speed limit zone on June 17th in Strongsville, Ohio. He later paid both tickets, settling the cases. It's not the first time Sanders discussed the speeding tickets, but it may have been the more stern of his admission. In June, at David Njoku's celebrity softball game, Sanders gave a brief assessment of the tickets. "I've made some wrong choices," Sanders said with a laugh. "I gotta own up to them. I learned from them. Fair or not, the tickets may have highlighted issues that some team executives had with selecting the quarterback." A league decision-maker told USA Today Sports' Jarrett Bell in May that Sanders' flashy persona and leadership style were a concern. That takes the attention off things like his decision to work out with high school students during his early days in Cleveland after the draft. Sanders is no stranger to the spotlight, however. The son of NFL Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, the quarterback has been living life under a microscope for years. Playing the most important position in sports and doing so in college for his father's teams at Jackson State and Colorado only magnified everything. The 23-year-old will look to put the situation behind him now and return everyone's attention to what he can do on the field. It might have been a costly lesson for Sanders, but it could have been much worse. The afternoon media scrum had been routine up until then. Questions about red zone efficiency, chemistry with receivers, and the ever-looming Browns quarterback competition. Then a reporter at the far end of the tent raised a hand and asked the thing everyone had whispered about for weeks. "Shedeur, there have been reports of a couple of speeding tickets in the last month. Can you speak to that?" A murmur swept through the group, cameras angled closer, microphones extended. Sanders adjusted his Browns cap, gave a lopsided grin, and exhaled sharply. "Yeah," he said, not ducking the topic. "It happened. I was driving too fast a couple of times, got popped. And I'll tell you right now, I definitely learned not to drive fast at all." Cityscape at dusk before the incident. It hadn't been a secret that Sanders loved cars. Back in Colorado, his social media feed often featured him leaning against vintage muscle or posting highlight reels with the caption "Fast Life." When he arrived in Cleveland, he brought that love of speed with him. An imported black coupe, a custom-tuned engine, the kind of car that hums with restrained power even at stoplights. But training camp life was different. Sleep-deprived mornings, late film sessions, traffic thick with construction detours. Sometimes the temptation to press the gas felt like a release. The first ticket came after a voluntary minicamp, 78 in a 55. He shrugged it off, paid the fine. The second came weeks later, a little faster, a little later at night. This time, word leaked. Television, the public perception. On local talk radio, hosts debated his maturity. "He's gotta understand, he's not in Boulder anymore," one said. "Franchise quarterbacks can't be reckless," another chimed in. Fans on social media flooded threads with gifs of speeding cars and jokes about Shedeur's other highlight reels. It could have been a distraction, a small thing magnified by the microscope of the NFL. But Sanders, true to his upbringing under the spotlight of Coach Prime, handled it with calm. Studio microphone, the media tent moment. So here he was after practice, sweat still drying on his jersey, addressing the swirl head-on. "I know people are looking at me not just as a player, but as a guy who represents this team," he said, leaning forward on the podium. "I made a couple mistakes. Nothing crazy happened. No one got hurt, thank God, but it was careless." He paused, glancing out at the cameras. "And I've been thinking a lot about what that says about discipline. Out here, Coaches are asking me to make perfect reads, stay cool under pressure. How can I do that if I'm not even patient enough to obey a speed limit? So yeah, I definitely learned not to drive fast at all. You won't catch me doing that again. American football on the practice field. Earlier that day, Sanders had thrown one of his best deep balls of camp, an effortless 40-yarder that dropped into Marcus Langston's hands in stride. Teammates mobbed him in celebration, and Stefanski cracked a smile rare for a July afternoon. It was proof that off-field noise hadn't seeped into his play. Kids locked in, veteran receiver Amari Cooper said later. We all make mistakes. The question is whether you grow from them. He's showing us every day that he's growing. Vertical traffic light life lessons beyond the hash marks. Sanders admitted to reporters that the tickets forced him to reflect on how quickly narratives can change. One day you're a promising rookie throwing dimes in practice. The next, your name scrolls across tickers for something unrelated to football. Man, when I called my dad about it, he didn't yell, Sanders shared with a small laugh. He just said, son, slow down on and off the field. And that hit me harder than any fine. He explained that he now takes a longer route to the facility, one with fewer open stretches to tempt him. He drives with music low, windows down, soaking in the Ohio summer. It's become a ritual, a moment of mindfulness before the controlled chaos of NFL life. Sparkles the rookie narrative evolves. By the end of the media session, the topic shifted back to football. His timing with the second-team offense, his film study habits, his aspirations to climb the depth chart. But the speeding question lingered in the minds of many. Not as a scandal, but as a turning point. Browns fans on forums later praised his candor. He owned up to it. That's leadership. Honestly, refreshing to hear a young guy speak with maturity. Even Stefanski, when asked if the tickets affected his evaluation, shook his head. Look, we want guys who learn from mistakes. That's what Shedeur's doing. That's all you can ask.